Well, hello everybody and welcome to the channel. This is David Bianco. So it's another vinyl shootout, and this is one that I've been looking forward to for several months. It's the Analogue Productions release on UHQR of Steely Dan's Gaucho. We're going to compare it to the reigning champion from a review earlier this year. That's coming up next on the Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion. This release is one that I've definitely been waiting on. It was supposed to come out December 1st, 2023, when the Universal release came out. Now, if you don't know, Steely Dan's reissue is being done in two ways. Universal is releasing a approximately $35 version that is on vinyl and 33 1/3 RPM. It is mastered by Bernie Grundman, but put to high-res digital tape. That tape then goes to a vinyl mastering engineer and has traditionally been Alex Abrash, who has been doing those, putting them to vinyl. Now that one did come out on December 1st, but the Analogue Productions UHQR 2x45 RPM on Clarity vinyl was delayed. I think partially because there is this huge influx of product that had to come out for the Atlantic 75th series, 3 a month for the most part. And so a lot of things kind of got in the way of some of the pressing capacity, and the timings had to be shifted. So here it is, mid-April 2024, and finally Gaucho has been released. Now, of course, this has come out in the standard way that we see these come out from Analogue Productions, the big box format as we call it. Some people don't like those boxes, but I think they're pretty classic looking. The actual album, just a beautiful Stoughton jacket here. Just really glossy, making noise opening up. I don't even want to fully open it here. And then, of course, on the back, the tracks, and you'll notice, of course, we have a situation where we have 4 sides. So the songs are split up a little differently than they were on the original album. There's also a fold-out here, and this particular one has liner notes by Donald Fagen. It also shows you the original master tapes that Bernie used to make this, and then Donald's commentary on the album, and then full credits here on the back page. So this album comes out at a time when we're just getting to that filing deadline for our taxes. So if you've already got your refund, you can buy one of these babies. So this has been a lot of fun listening to this since it came in today. A lot of immersion into listening to it. I was ready for it. I had again released a video earlier in the year, in January, the first shootout, and I'll show you the findings of that here. And you'll see that clearly the first pressing, the OG original, was clearly the winner, a very strong winner here. And the mastering engineer originally was Robert Ludwig, RL, and again, mine has that EDP stamp on it. It was done at Masterdisk. So really one of the higher end recordings that was done back in 1980. Really had a lot of sonics, just way up there, and one that you would use to demo a system. Now, the copy I had wasn't as quiet as I would like. I have several others of the same type, and they are all, they're not noisy, but they aren't quiet either. So that is one of the things we always struggle with a bit with some of the originals. We'll get into talking about that more. So let's get into this particular shootout, and I'll give you my impressions because I kind of wrote these as I listened and tried to formulate some words that really evoked what I was feeling and thinking about what I was hearing, and then we'll get to the ratings from this UHQR. The Analogue Productions UHQR comes out on 2 LPs, and they are cut at 45 RPM each. This is the logo that's on there for the label that was present at the time, MCA Records. So the rainbow version is what's on here, and the breakdown of the songs is different, obviously, than it was on the 33. On the AP side A, which is about 11 minutes, has the first two tracks, Babylon Sisters and Hey 19. When you move to side B, you only have one song on that one. That is the 7 minute and 28 second song of Glamour Profession. The second LP is side C with about 10 minutes, and you have the title track Gaucho on it, and then Time Out of Mind. Flipping that over, you're on side D with about 10 minutes as well, and the final two tracks of My Rival and Third World Man. So as you can see, this is broken up. The songs have a lot of room. The cutting has a lot of room to breathe, so that that groove's a little more spread out, less intrusive against each other. And of course, going at that faster speed, the potential benefit from that material stretching out over a longer linear path. Now, we got to go back to 1980, and we've got to admit that the original pressing, or what we call the first pressing, or OG, as I'm going to call it, of this particular record is stellar. Having a clean copy of this Gaucho album at 33 RPM back in the day with RL in the dead wax, you can call it a day having that one because it represents a great value. No one could ever blame anyone for taking that approach and sticking with it. So how can something actually better it? I mean, that's really been the challenge in our mind, I think. And how can it then be worth the price difference? Because we have something that was done so darn well that it's hard to fathom what could improve on it. Well, we know that audiophile recordings are really all about getting that nirvana experience in audio. No, not the band, but that audio experience, that lofty goal of one-upping the reigning champion. That's what we're always looking for. And the RL Mastered Original is undoubtedly the champ to date, as I outlined in the previous video when I compared it to the Canadian Half-Speed Master and the Universal 33 1/3 release that was done digital to vinyl. So Bernie did both of those. He did the UHQR that we have now, and he did the one where the high res was given as well. So it's quite the comparison when we start to look at what we really end up with from the UHQR. Now for the vinyl, the mastering efforts had to go through the ears, brain, and approval process of one Chad Kassem, owner of Analogue Productions. And I happened to notice, as I usually check out, 3 sides on here were RE-4 written, and one side was RE-5, which means the 5th version or cut by Bernie was used on 3 of the sides, and the 6th cut was used on 1 of the sides. So Chad spent the time and the money to try to get that last drop of nectar left in that analog tape for Gaucho. Now, I gotta say, there are things I heard on the original that were always there, but I didn't fully pick up on them until I heard the UHQR. And then I went back and realized, they were present on the OG, but not nearly as apparent. Like some very subtle cymbal taps between the 2-minute and 9-second and 2-minute and 15-second mark in Babylon Sisters. You see, it's just these type of details that come out at you in this UHQR that seem a bit more recessed in the original. But God knows, I didn't know they were when I was listening to the OG all these years. The vocals here also have a slightly better attack in the UHQR. It's almost like Donald and the backing singers are trying to get your attention a bit more than on the OG. And that's a welcome presence as well. I have no doubt that if these differences are apparent on my meager system, which I'll show you here, they will be standing out even more on your higher end systems. Now, this is what I call PDQ vinyl. That stands for pretty darn quiet vinyl. Pretty good. And when one gets that occasional tick or pop in the original pressing, and you're doing A-B mode with the UHQR, it becomes all the more annoying. I kind of call those audio speed bumps. You're driving along, listening, whoops, oh. You're so honed in on the artistry of the recording and the masterful musicianship that any noise really takes you out of the zone. It's kind of like when that pesky person at a concert crosses just in front of you for a short bit. I mean, it's momentary, but it takes you out of the groove. No pun intended. I liken this recording to a really colorful and engaging painting where the saturation is so full that it pops in a good way, and you find yourself mesmerized in the mere artistry of it all. Now, I know that the written words and the stories of some of these tunes in this album are a bit colorful in totally different ways, but the vocals flow here in a manner that doesn't keep you thinking about the meaning because you're simply basking in these complementary voices with the rhythm of the music. My apologies to all you lyricists everywhere, but that's just the way this one flows. Now, to be 100% clear, the OG has never seemed lame or tame in any way. That is until today. For example, the UHQR was breathing in just that extra precision to the lead and background vocals that made them omnipresent. And the UHQR gave the horn section just a bit more sweet topness and smoothness depending on the brass instrument that was in use. The string strikes on the piano, try to say that 3 times fast, came across more predominantly on the UHQR, and the sheen of the cymbals, the swipe or the strike of it, and the slightly deeper boom of all the drums on hits other than the snare, which had its own strike precision, were really evident in the UHQR, especially when you started to A-B it to the original. The truth is that the image of some of these were subtle, yet these noticeable nuanced improvements in the UHQR were more obvious to me even with headphone listening. That's when some of this really got into my mind and I recognized the differences. While on speakers, the quietness of the vinyl was immediately apparent when the needle drop happened, and then the openness and the imaging present gave the greatest ambient impression. Along with that, the punch of the bottom end is also just a bit tighter and more impactful. And the expansive openness of the echo and reverb, which is used a lot in the voices, seem to hang in the air an amount of time more on the UHQR, such that it captivates the ears and your mind, with the result of bringing a wide grin to your face. It truly makes one feel as if you're experiencing the event in person live. And through that, one can actually feel the mood of the musicianship. It's almost like you can visualize the artists playing their respective instruments. No, I wasn't on any type of drug while I was doing this shootout. This was ecstasy without the ecstasy. No! Some examples around this are abounding in the actual record. The bass plucks at the start of My Rival. They are more clean and clear of the rest of the instruments and separate from it on the UHQR versus the OG. Just a discerning separation that makes it stand out on the UHQR versus being a bit more blurred in with the other instruments on the OG. It's as if each musician got their own solo embedded into the song as they were playing with others. It is a rather revealing distinction that can only be clearly understood when you're able to flip between the two recordings in real time. In the end, the UHQR sounds so good, I gained another stratosphere of appreciation and respect for all the artists that were involved in making this record, including engineer Roger the Immortal Nichols, and producer Gary Katz. It's just an amazing piece of work. Now, looking at the OG, it's totally true that some of these shootouts confirmed what a testament we have to the fact that these were darn good OGs of Steely Dan records back at the $6.98 or $7.98 list price when they were released. Now that's $26 and $30 respectively in today's dollars, but if you can find a VG Plus of this, grab one, if nothing else but for posterity. So what do the ratings show us on this? Well, as you recall, going back to the first press RL that I reviewed earlier in the year, which was the winner, it had an overall score of 9.2. Now, if you look carefully, that quiet vinyl being 7.5 pulled it down quite a bit, because when it came to the actual sonics, you can see 9.5s across the board as it related to the bass, mid, and the trebles, and then a 10 on the imaging or openness and airiness of the sound of the record. So really, really high marks when you put the quietness of the vinyl aside. So where do we go with the UHQR? Well, the vinyl was almost dead quiet. One side had a little bit of noise, so I gave it a 9.5, but definitely a huge improvement over the OG that I had. And it was even better than the other two that I compared it to back in January, including the more recent one, which was done by Universal. But when it came to the actual sonics, the bass and the mid and the trebles were all 10s, and the imaging and openness and airiness is a 10 plus. I mean, I thought that what I had with the original in that regard, in that imaging area, was as good as it could get, and I gave it a 10. Well, this one has even a little more. But I didn't give it 11 because I didn't want to skew this thing to be over 10 points. But at the end of the day, we end up with this 9.9 rating for the new UHQR out of 10. So what else can you say? It doesn't get much better than that. I can imagine there are going to be some people, those that I've come to call OG pushers, who will let their nostalgic leanings cast aside the UHQR because their OG was pressed at their favorite pressing plant of the 70s or the 80s, or those who say it can't sound better, or will espouse that they had dead quiet vinyl on their OG, which is honestly a rarity at best. Now I get the nostalgia part, as I can be just as nostalgic as anybody else being 66 years old, but I can certainly concur that the original mastering and pressings of this were at the top of their field, no doubt. That said, it's easy to be cynical and say there isn't anything more left to squeeze out of this masterpiece. Now, we always know improving these gold medal works of audio artistry were going to be a challenge. Like Asia, it was a high bar to overcome, and to do so, it got down to some pretty fine details. So it always comes down to this question, right? Is the UHQR of Gaucho worth $150? Well, firstly, you must really love an LP to pay that much, period. So assuming that you do love Gaucho, then it becomes an easy decision. If you want to hear more in it than you ever have, or if you want to get goosebumps while listening to it, the answer is yes. Now, if you already have gotten goosebumps listening to the original RL OG of Gaucho, the UHR can do you one better, or at least it did for me. There were some sections of this recording that elicited an emotional shake in my gut with a "you are there" moment. Now that's immersion, and that's being there. And that's something that I didn't pick up when listening it to all the other versions I did in the Shootout in January. So if you love these moments, especially when you close your eyes and you imagine you are there while listening to music, then this UHQR of Gaucho is just a tonic for that kind of artistic appreciation. Like paying top dollar for a really great dinner, The satisfaction is all there. The good news with this UHQR and all records is that this audio diner stays open 24/7. And the cost of this meal only hits you once. If you're hungry for more, spin it again. Well, those are my impressions of this. Thanks for your time as always. If you haven't subscribed, please consider clicking on the bell and picking the all option. And a like or thumbs up is appreciated, as well as comments. So until we do another excursion, we'll catch you next time for our next Safe and Sound Texas audio excursion. Take care, everybody.